Hi, and welcome to the second episode of 30 Minute Book Reports. I'm James Fitz, and this is the second episode. So, you might have seen on the stream over the last 2 days, I read the book, The Lean Startup. It's mirrored. Uh, so, if you've seen any like business books to read, top 10 lists, this book's all over the place. It's on your MBA pre-recommended reading guide list. It's on all the bookshelves. So I thought I'd give it a look. It was on I have my brother's Kindle for some reason. I third Kindle. So I read it on here. Happened to be already on there. So that was nice. So this book starts off by talking about kind of who the book is for. And so it's probably people who pick it up are people who are business people. And they're probably looking for something in the world of entrepreneurship. So if there's a subheading of the business world, this would lie in entrepreneurship. But the author, I should know his name, Eric Rice. I'm assuming that's Ries, Rice, Eric, wants to expand the world of entrepreneurship, or the definition that entrepreneurship applies to. He's saying this can also apply to big companies. This can apply to really any situation where innovation and there's an unknown and you're looking to build and expand in a new area. So, what's nice about this book is Eric has a lot of stories and references of examples of his theory about how to create a lean startup, which is basically how to you want to go into a new market, you want to build a business in an area. How do you do it without wasting a bunch of money? Because really, one of the big problems is waste. And so the way that Eric sees it is a lot of this waste comes from not or doing too much before you get feedback. So he talks about this shortening the feedback loop so that you can get input back from your initial. There's so many there's a lot of misconceptions, and they're inevitable. So the idea is that then you would go through that as quickly as possible. So rather than waiting for a year for the big launch to find out if everything works all at once, you can do smaller increments. And he suggests a lot of different ways to do this. The first one is this kind of this cool idea called it's like the minimum viable product. So the minimum viable product is the like smallest thing you can make to find out the next stage of information that you need. Okay, so he has a couple cool stories for what is the minimum viable product, and really the minimum viable product to find out the information you need to make the next decision. Okay, so one of these interesting stories he tells is the story of Dropbox, where Dropbox, it had this idea that people would want this file sharing service on a cloud that synced between all devices, right? But in order to build it big enough to be viable, it would need way more investment, but they didn't even know if customers wanted this product. So very smartly, they tested to see if the customers wanted the product. The way they tested was they just made a video showing what would happen, but they didn't actually have to make it viable. They did all the front end, the interface, and if you had a product like this, then would you pay for it, or those kinds of things. And then once they got people signed on for that, then they actually invested the infrastructure to make the product. So this story actually has another side piece which it talks about, which is like making sure you're communicating with the customer and you've identified your market. So key thing for Dropbox is they wanted early adopters. So early adopters are a market segment that you treat differently than you do later adopters. The reason you want to pay attention to this is the number of features you need, or the early adopters are more patient than later adopters. And they're also more likely to be seeking out something new rather than doing something that is following a trend. That also speaks to how you market to them. Anyway, so this minimum viable product it's probably the most significant concept that is brought up in this book, but it's really paired with this idea of small batch size. So the small batch size is how small of a thing can you do to then measure and then find the results and then decide whether it was a good idea or not. Because basically we go in when we're creating something with an assumption that it's a good idea, but every time we want to test that. And so the quicker you can turn around in doing that, or the less you can invest in doing that, the better. Because basically you're finding out with the information whether it's true or not, and then it's worthwhile investing in the thing. But you kind of have to do it backwards. So you do it as small as you can and then build up. So batch size can be how much money you're investing, how many people, how much time, that kind of thing. And the idea is minimize it. So he has a ton of examples. One that he talks about a lot is QuickBooks. He talks about how they had a problem where they test their system every year, but if something's wrong, then it's catastrophic. And so they had a year where that happened, where the new rollout took 3 times longer for people to fill out than the original, and they had no idea that this was the case, and then it took them a whole year to fix it. So what they did was they changed their strategy to quarterly releases, so that way they could test, and they could also allow the customer to choose whether they wanted the newer iteration or the old iteration, so that way they had both platforms at once. One thing that he talks about a lot is testing the data that you're getting feedback. So the feedback is the most important. It's not whether or not it's successful up front. Okay, I realize as I'm doing this report, I'm regurgitating, but what is the purpose here? So one thing while I was reading this book is I was applying it to this thing that I'm doing right now. So I'm thinking, okay, the feedback of like, where do you want to spend your time investing in improving? Okay, so first you want to have like, if there's any viewers, and then okay, you want them to get to subscription, and then you want them to get to interaction or something of that measure. Okay, so don't spend your time improving the quality of the product until you at first have even engagement. Because if you don't have engagement, then you're just going further in a direction of something that nobody wants. So in this context, would be okay, how many viewers do you have? And if you don't have any viewers, then okay, well then what you need to focus on is not making sure that there's good music, but rather enticing people to click on the initial product. So the outward facing thing, the image, what they see, search engine optimization of the wording of the initial thing should come as a priority before making sure the content inside of the piece is more valuable. In addition, shrink the batch size. So every day, make improvements. See if you can monitor an improvement or not improvement. That's in decreasing the batch size. Also I could. So then one other tool he talks about is the 5 whys. So if you have a problem, then not only address it on the first action of why is it a problem, but keep going deeper and then address something deeper within it. So the problem could be, okay, there's no engagement. Okay, so why is that a problem? Or is there no engagement? Well, nobody's signing up, or the content isn't engaging, or there's no call to action. And then, why is there no call to action? Oh, I never said something. Oh, why didn't I say something? Oh, I wasn't reminded to say something. Oh, how will I remind myself to say something in the future? I'll write it down on a notepad and then go through the notepad as you're delivering the speech. Okay. Okay, something I'm thinking now is 30 minutes is a good amount of time. I like the name 30-minute book reports because it suggests more depth than your average book report, but it's at least a truncation of reading the entire book. Although, I guess I read this book in 7 or 9 hours. So a 30-minute book report should cover like an eighth of the content. Seems like a lot. So maybe what people want is more of a chat, a discussion around the book. Okay, more of a question and answer type of situation. Like, question, would you recommend this book? Answer, yes, I would recommend this book. Question, can you apply this book? Some things. Oh, well, now I have the idea of this minimum viable product in my mind. I have decreasing batch size as a priority in my mind. I have the 5 whys, or the why questioning system in my mind. I also have these strong stories to attach them to. The stories of Dropbox and of Xerox and of... Yeah, this is sounding better already. And, have you read any more companies? IBM. No, Facebook. Toyota. Kodak. Zappos. And now each time I think of one of those companies, I'm going to associate it with the lean business. And so it not only did a good job of entangling the information deeply in my mind, giving it stories to connect to, giving it good rationalization for the things that they did, but also set out how to apply it in as direct of a way as they could. "30 minutes might be ambitious." I did 30 minutes pretty easily on the last one, though. I'm at 14 minutes. Well, does anyone have any questions? That's... I always remember as a kid, you'd do a book report and you'd have you'd do a report and they'd give you an amount of time of how to do it. And then if you didn't have enough time or didn't do enough content, you would fill the end with a question and answer segment and then get your friends to ask you questions that were long, so that way you could eat up time, because a dialogue is Um, time consuming. Monologue. Oof. It's easy to run into a dead end. Hmm. I guess if the purpose of reading a business book is if you can take away three actions, three big principles, that's pretty substantial for the amount of pages and time I invested into it. So I give it a A. Wasn't as fun. It wasn't very fun, but Liar's Poker is more of a story rather than it wasn't like teaching lessons. This could be like a book in a business school. Not quite a textbook though. How about this? I'll stay. I'll stay online for any questions for the last 15 minutes. Oh, okay, that's how I do it. First 15. I say what I like about the book, how I'm going to use it,